Well, my dooming arc has come to an end because it's time to solve another puzzle. And if you are in the Sage format like I am, I'm deep in this format, you know that there's one deck that we're of course talking about. We talked about it last week. It is Briar. And here's the thing, Briar is back, better than ever, more powerful than ever, potent to the T, but I do think she does have some significant counters if the meta leans into them. So today we're going to talk about how you're going to be beating Briar and what the meta is going to look like, shaping around what is clearly going to be on everyone's mind as the best deck in format. And I want to start by saying Teklo Foundry made a fantastic video, I think it was like on Tuesday or on Monday of this week, and it was hilarious because I was planning to make this video, and you know what, Teklo Foundry already beat me to the punch. So watch that video because there are some very similar through lines, some very similar thought processes that of course we share. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper into what I think this meta is going to do. But if we're talking about strictly beating Briar, which is a very tall order, because Briar is very potent with all of the new cards that she gets from Omens of the Third Age, alongside of Burn Up Shock coming back and Lightning Press. The first thing that I think everyone is thinking about is Ice. Tax the hell out of Briar. Make her pay through Frostbites and, present disruption in some way, shape, or form. Take cards. And there are two heroes that do that better than anyone. And the first one being Oldhim. Oldhim is one of those heroes that can just sit down to the table, ice react his way to a win. Taking a card from Briar basically every turn he has an ice card is quite potent against a deck that wants to set up 5-card hands and is going to be relegated to a 4-card play. If you were to take Oldhim and to play that sort of block slop style where you have all of those yellow 4s, and you combine that with more ice cards, specifically things like Frostfang that also have the benefit outside of being pitched to be played if you have the tempo and require some response or remove a card from the hand, you could definitely get there. You could even lean further into like playing some sort of like a Winter's Bite or Arctic Incarceration type thing. I don't know if you would need to do that. I think Oldhim can probably just stand on his own legs and try to fatigue Briar in that respect. But he, of course, would be the first thing on everyone's mind. Maybe not the first thing. Now that I say that, I have to put a caveat because there was another hero in the previous meta for Silver Age that just quietly crept towards the top of the leaderboard, and that's the other ice hero that we're going to talk about, Iyslander. These two heroes, I think, are going to work in concert to try and curb the power of the best deck in format, which is Briar. If these two heroes show up in large numbers to a tournament, then Briar will actually be pushed down to some degree. Now, I think there's always going to be games and always going to be tournaments where Briar is going to push past fatigue or disruption or, some amount of Frostbites in order to win the game and push their way up the overall standings at a tournament. So I don't think that these two heroes are going to outright kill Briar and take her out of the best deck in format, but I do think they both serve as a significant curbing effect to Briar's power. And Iyslander, of course, has the capacity to, play big attacks, which is, I think, the way she's going to have to approach this meta going forward. Play big attacks into the variety of the field, but also play things like Arctic Incarceration or Winter's Bite, anything that can provide Frostbites from the arsenal. All of those cards are going to be key pieces to stop Briar's damage output, because if you don't curb it, it is brutal. It is so freaking brutal. It really does push a lot of other decks that just don't have disruption down a couple of pegs on the tier list, which reminds me, we are indeed going to show a condensed tier list at the end of this video, so it's not just going to be looking like this. Wait until the end. But I want to highlight a couple of other heroes before we jump to that tier list. These are heroes I think do have some ability to react to Briar while also having some really strong matchups across the rest of the board. The first one is perhaps the most dark horse deck that you haven't heard of. It's the other ice hero. All ice. If you could play an ice hero, this is probably the time. Lexi is so underratedly dark horse in, I think, most Young Life formats, partially because she can be built to be aggressive, And most people, I think, are building the, Death Dealer snapshot version of Lexi, where she just kind of tries to go for like 20-something damage on one big turn or a couple of big turns. I think this deck needs to pivot to an ice strategy, and I think it will be best served in pivoting to an ice strategy, in playing out like Arctic Incarceration Red to really just stop a Briar dead in their tracks, basically just completely kill their turn, time walk their turn, and then take a big turn after that. Lexi, on top of all that, has arrows that can provide discard potential, can provide frostbites. If you lean the whole build in that ice direction, I think she is a very good play, being aggressive while also being disruptive into a hero like Briar. This is one I would actually keep my eye on, and if you're looking to specifically counter Briar, she is a fantastically aggressive choice. Where she's going to struggle is into the Guardians, and I think Guardians are going to be more prevalent than ever, not just Oldhim, but the next pick as well. Lyeth, I'm just going to say it. I hate this hero playing against it. I think it's really cool that he exists, and he's very good, but I hate playing against it. And the reason is I play Blaze, and by playing Blaze, this almost feels like an auto loss matchup if things don't go your way relatively quickly. Now, to our credit, as a Blaze player, there are things that we can do to make this matchup easier, and I think the deck is going to be pushed that way because of the way this meta is shaking out, or is going to shake out, I'm predicting. That being said, I think Lyeth has so much game into a variety of different heroes, notwithstanding, well, I guess I should say, including Briar, which is why we're talking about all of these heroes, because all of these heroes, I think, have some game into the best deck in format. And Lyeth can go two different ways. Lyeth has a fantastic fatigue deck, and simultaneously, he also has a very aggressive, like 17 damage, confidence on the board, you're dead type build as well. So you can play this hero in a very aggressive format, or in a very, or I guess should say build, or a very defensive build, and you can find success either way. And that's why I think he's probably going to start creeping up the leaderboard if people pick him up, figure him out, and play him, because I do think that he can play into Briar and he can play into the Guardians that want to try to fatigue. Now, I do think his struggle is going to be, if you're playing that aggressive build, pitching into all of your cards is difficult because you're playing so many reds, and frostbites are going to be flying every which way. From Oldhim, you're going to get like ice reacted. From Icelander, you're going to get frostbites out the wazoo. That, I imagine, would be relatively tough if you're playing the aggressive build. If you're playing the more defensive build, then playing a long game versus an Icelander feels scary, and then you're going toe-to-toe with other fatigue heroes. So I do think there's a world where he's not the best deck in format, but if you're looking for a hero that beats Wizard and beats Briar, that might be your guy. And then finally, one more Guardian we'll talk about before we hit that full tier list, and that's Terra. Terra is a deck that has already proven its mettle as far as fatigue is concerned. This is a hero that can take you to time, take you to task, and just push you to the end of the game where you have no cards left. Where I'm curious is if he can deal with the raw split damage presented by Briar, and that's where I'm not so sure where things are going to fall. So this is my overall list of heroes that we've talked about thus far, and here, let me put them on the screen so that you can see a full and complete tier list. I shouldn't even say that's not full and complete, but this is what I've got for you. Okay, so here is our tier list. Of course, I do believe the best deck in format is going to be Briar, and I think it's going to require the meta to adjust to her. I do think it is capable, because this is such a Redline Cheerios build currently. I think it's very possible that heroes can adjust and try to tamp her down. And that's kind of what we saw when KO and her were sort of in battle for the top spot previously. People were starting to try and tech for her with some of these Guardian, heroes like Oldhim and Terra and so on and so forth. But let's take a look at the rest of this top 8 bracket that I'm calling it. I talked about Icelander, I talked about Oldhim, I talked about Lyeth, and briefly about Terra. And this is not an exhaustive list. As you can see, there's like 43 heroes still left to play, and I could argue a couple of other heroes making it onto this list at large, but let's talk about Chain. I have played against Chain back when he was, full unfettered in this format, and it was quite toxic, quite potent. Taking away the 2s does help, but he still has a lot of power at his disposal thanks to cards like Spellblade Assault, thanks to like Read the Runes, yellows and reds, being able to just slam those down. He can even play the D-React that makes a rune chant so that you can kind of keep the ball rolling, if you will, but you're now relegated into all of those 3-cost Rune Gate cards. So I'd be curious to see if he ends up pivoting to a different build in general, but either way he goes, I think he's very powerful, and he's going to provide some very big spike turns, which will go well into some of the Guardian heroes. So I do see Chain being quite potent, and he could very easily just kind of creep his way up and into this sort of like top tier echelon. For now, though, I have him placed right about here. Now, other heroes that I haven't talked about yet, Blaze. I can't believe that I'm going to say this, but I'm sad that Blaze is in this meta, because this is like her big moment to like hit the Silver Age scene. And I'm going to be honest with you, she's going to do relatively well across like events. She's going to do well at tournaments. She's, going to have people finishing in like fairly top spots with her. People are probably going to win tournaments with Blaze. But the fundamental problem, if you're looking at a universal metagame, like across the entire world, and you're comparing all data, is that she's going to have to go toe-to-toe with Briar, who's just faster, and with Guardian, who can just kind of blow her up, and then Fatigue Guardian, who is like teched to the teeth versus Wizards. And that's just a really sad state. Like, the fact that LSS has given so many silver bullet cards to this format and just to generic card pools in general means that all of these wizard heroes have to just work extra hard to make their hay. And I would say, I think that's deserved, because without some of those silver bullet cards, heroes like Blaze or like New School Acilio or even Kano, who's on the bitch, become super toxic. Okay, so I think it's right for LSS to have given everyone tools, silver bullet specifically tools, to combat these heroes. It just doesn't feel good to play against. So like either way, I think they're sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't, but she is in a very hostile meta, and until that meta shifts towards really targeting other heroes and starts dropping some of the wizard hate, I do think she's like at the bottom of this top 8, even though she's going to put up results. That's the craziest part about it. She's going to put up results, and she's very good. She's a very good hero, and I'm probably going to do a video on her tomorrow about the deck that I'm going to be running. But still, I do think she is going to be a tough sell at the early outset of the meta. I think Fi is barely in this spot right here for this top 8 tier, but I do think he has the capacity to kind of go really fast and do really big things. He could honestly kind of sit down here alongside of Dash. They kind of do the same thing. They fulfill the same role, but I wanted to clean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 heroes, so I put him up there. Maybe you could argue this as well, because I do think Florian is going to be underrated going forward. I put Lexi in the Dark Horse deck because of the fact that she's going to struggle, I think, into Guardians. But she also does provide a lot of metagaming. All right, let's continue down this list. Bravo Flattering Showman is another hero that you could look at as a Guardian and as an on-hit disruption machine versus Briar. But I think that he's going to be outclassed by the likes of Lyeth if you're looking to be aggressive. If you're looking to be aggressive, just throw 5 cards or 6 cards at your opponent every turn and, put confidence on that as well. I think Dash is also a solid aggressive option to try and go toe-to-toe with Briar, and I do think that Dash beats consistently Blaze and is very fast in general, has the capacity to pay around Disruption or Frostbites, but I do think she is outclassed in this race, and I think she can be relatively easily fatigued by some of the more slow block slop Guardians. And then finally, Florian, I think, is a fantastic answer to the Guardians, and I think has some amount of game into like the slower decks in general. If they don't just kill him, then he can just stack up. But the problem is I actually think he's pretty weak to Briar. Like, theoretically, I don't see a world where he's going to survive like 20 damage into 20 damage turns consistently and be able to like mount an effective response after 3 turns. Maybe he just tries to like hard fatigue and build up 30 rune chance against Briar. I'm not sure that works, and I could be wrong, but on the face of it, I think this is one that I would worry about. And then finally, I want to talk about these dark horse decks. Aurora is a hero that no one is going to consider, but Aurora has so many tools. I mean, it's the same tools as Briar, but you build it in a specific way to make go-agains even easier, and you can like tech in far more of the like lightning cards and feel really good. Aurora is a dark horse deck that is basically just Briar with extra steps. I don't know another way to put that nicely. Gravy Bones is going to be the pick of the century if Guardians come up and start to push Briar down. If Guardians become the thing, Gravy is eating. And if Wizard, like specifically Blaze, is coming up in response to the Guardians, Gravy will eat you alive. Board state with no interaction, and you have to remove. You can't fatigue this deck, and he clearly and easily and cleanly combats like this hero and this hero and this hero and this hero and this hero. Well, not this hero, I should say, and this hero, like and this hero. Gravy's so good. The problem is Briar. It's just like literally the Briar and nothing else. Dorinthia has always been one of those dark horse decks, not because of Great Axe, but more because of the sword build. Like if you're only going to be seeing aggressive decks like Dash, Briar, Fi, and maybe even like Blaze, then Dorinthia, the sword build and just stacking up a big freaking Dawnblade and blowing your opponent up is very viable. And I want to say the same thing is true of Acilio. Man, I have like really started to change my mindset on this Acilio, and maybe even like the new one could arguably be good as well. You can do a lot of the same things that Blaze does now with Acilio, and I'm starting to see his stock rise more and more in my mind. I need to mess around with him more. And then I put Bolton here, and just hear me out. Bolton kind of sucks. He kind of sucks against a lot of the heroes here, but just randomly he can put like a 30 damage turn on the board, and like that's through armor. It's crazy. Like some of the cards he has at his disposal, like Duty Bound Blitz, and like just being able to play, like pop to the Blossom of Spring and play via the Vanguard and like have the Flurry token on the board. I got blown up from like 20 or something. I was like on Blaze, full health. I blocked with my entire hand, and they had like 5 extra damage to overkill me as the Bolton player. And I was like, what the heck? And that's when I started to realize, this is a glass cannon deck. And so if you're looking to try and just kind of blow one of these heroes up, maybe you can get there with Bolton. So that's my breakdown of this metagame. Let me know what you think about this in the comment below. How do you think it's going to shape up, and what hero are you looking to pick up in response to this new meta? If you like this type of content, of course, make the number go to the other number. And as always, everybody, thanks for watching.